Okay, so it turns out that Ed Lee took off, and nobody told Oscar that he should stick around. If anybody wants to come up here and get picked on, you're welcome to. Otherwise, we will pick it up. What I think what do we want to do? Continue? So you're the boss. I'm just the mouthpiece. So what do you want to do?
You certainly are a mouthpiece.
So what do you want to do, Professor Chairman? I've blown him away. Look at this.
Let's ask the audience.
Yeah, okay. You want to continue what we're doing, or you want to? So okay,
Does anybody
good.
have a
So that's
question?
right. So who has a question? And if the first
opinion?
question wants to continue what we were doing yesterday, we'll do that. If you want to move off to another subject, we'll do that. So
There's room in the front row.
the guy who just came in. He may not want to sit in the front row. He may be embarrassed that he came in late. No, he doesn't look like the kind of guy who gets embarrassed easily. So. You'll notice that he sat in the second row, not the front row. I'm telling you, I gotta publish this result, you know. So, who wants to get us started? Nobody wants to get us started. Boy.
What are the pressing issues? Does computer architecture have a future? So John the other day, John Goodacre, said that there doesn't seem to be anything new. I was going to take him up on it.
Then you or somebody else said that's okay, the technology makes everything.
I said that I think that we tend to go in a spiral.
So I think so.
So let me have that. Let me have Trevor. I remember in which moment, but certainly after some drinks, told I don't know, it was here last year. Trevor told this audience that computer architecture conference repeats concepts and papers every 5 years.
Yeah.
So can you elaborate on that?
Well, I don't think there's much to say, except that if you want to publish, just start reading papers that are older than 5 years and
adapt them.
Yeah.
So what's the trick?
That's another novel thought. Read papers. Okay.
Well, I think the problem is that the scholarship in this particular space is not very good. In other words, people don't actually read. They sort of read the paper that's the one before. So the point of chasing only, or the reverse point of chasing only goes back one step.
They certainly don't reference original sources. I think I've told you, I've beaten this horse a number of times. Is the 2-bit counter branch predictor that Jim Smith came up with. I would venture to say if you look at every paper published this year, it mentions the Jim Smith's 2-bit counter branch predictor. You know what they will reference? Almost overwhelmingly. Not the ISCA 81 paper in which he presented it, but rather the IEEE Micro survey article that Alan Smith wrote 3 years later. Right? And that just, every time I see that, it just, you know.
Well, we can take that offline. I don't totally agree with that.
You don't agree with that?
Well, because Alan Smith's paper has a lot more stuff in it.
Yeah, but if you're going to reference a 2-bit counter, you reference the paper that presented a 2-bit counter, no?
But people are lazy. There's a
That's a novel thought.
People
John,
good, I got something started.
No, John has raised his hand before.
Oh,
Sorry.
So, if the computer architects just keep rehashing the same thing every 5 years, what was the last thing that was really different and made a big difference? And where should we have gone from there?
The last thing that was really different,
memory, getting rid of mercury delay lines for memory.
The last thing was really different. My 2-level branch predictor, how's that? Being self-serving.
Someone like you.
Was the GPU different? This business of having lots of cores, and as long as you don't have branches, and as long as all the memory is lined up properly, coalescing, they call it. You can run these GPU cores flat out. Is that different?
Is it different?
But that, I don't know, I mean, I'm at a loss. So, okay, so what are you saying, nothing's different?
No, I really think that one of the only different things is I buy Trevor's point. Technology comes and gives you new opportunities, and then you reinvent the wheel.
So that's, yeah, so that's certainly true. I remember.
But as far as just a comment, maybe what has been changing now is that we are using computers for more and more different things, and then a new set of requirements comes in. Applications, marketing, things. That's what he said.
So I want to get back to that, because this business of application driven. So one thing I think is new, I went and read, Georgi sent me Ed Lee's paper on predictable timing.
ICD 2009.
I'm sorry?
ICD 2009.
Yeah, and apparently it was rejected by ISTA.
Yes.
So I didn't read it carefully because it was late at night and I can't read carefully anyway. But I skimmed it enough to think that, and I slept through the keynote yesterday, so I didn't hear what he had to say yesterday. But from what I gather, the message is that if you get rid of the non-determinism, then you can guarantee when the delivery of the result will happen. So you get rid of branch prediction because it's non-deterministic, get rid of caches, it's non-deterministic. You get rid of all this non-determinism and then you can count on it. And in fact, we had this workshop a couple weeks ago, Mateo 2012, in which Theo Ungerer gave a talk, and it was essentially the same message in his talk, except that the applications they were looking at didn't require performance. It was like
How about that? But that's true.
well, let me finish the point. The applications are like the computer that's in your automobile to control the fuel injection consumption or something or other. That could run at maybe 60 hertz, and it would run that. So, what I would argue is if somebody can come up with a way, so there's a new research, right? Come up with a way that can deliver both predictable and performance, that would be an enabler for a whole set of applications. So my point is that it's not that the applications are driving it, it's that if somebody can come up with a way to do something better, and I don't mean tweaking the 2%, that's a red herring, something better, that's an enabler for a whole set of applications that people won't even think about now because they know they can't get it done. Now you can interrupt.
I've forgotten, you went on for so long. So you want to do predictable branch prediction?
I want to be able to take advantage, so first of all, I don't know how to do this. I want to be able to take advantage of what a branch predictor can buy you, and at the same time, give you the predictability of the, when the result is delivered.
Well, you could do an average. You could sort of
Average?
say, no, expected. And then when it doesn't meet that
Expected.
deadline, you
So he
could,
doesn't like average, expected. And there's a difference between average and expected.
So since technology is the enabler,
I'm sorry?
yes.
since
Technology is absolutely
is
an
the enabling factor. So
It absolutely is.
that's your point. Why
No,
don't you
so
buy my point?
I'm sorry?
Why don't you buy my point?
Well, because you
I made
agree.
it yesterday as well. And the point was that what you have in your hands today is multicores. So you have to make multiples and a better technology. Increase the usability of multicore technology. So that's the key in current computer architecture, and not speed, usability of multicores. So if it becomes 100 times easier to write software for multicores, then performance of the whole thing will not matter.
Sorry, but
I think it will be tremendous increase in products because of this usability.
Isn't it usability issue an issue for software developers rather than for architecture developers?
I
So
don't know.
what's going to happen
I
if you think
feel
about
that there needs to be an intermediate layer that helps hard software to do the job.
But for years,
I'm feeling that this cannot be in software.
You're feeling what? I didn't get the rest of the sentence.
That there is a need for an intermediate hardware layer that helps software to become able to use the complete infrastructure that it has below.
So here's one
Ah,
challenge.
so you know what he just bought into?
But there,
My theory of education. No, really, you know, the whole stack, that if one is gonna do good work at any layer, one needs to understand and appreciate all the layers. You buy into that, huh? Get a copy of my freshman book. You should be teaching my freshman course with my book.
I mean, one problem with multicores and parallelism is there's lots of problems that are probably impossible to parallelize. You know, all these p-hard problems, that whole class of algorithms has never been successfully parallelized. And it's sort of like people's MP problem. Does that actually mean truly that they are parallelizable? That's not actually been proved, but a lot of people are beating their head against the wall. So,
There's a lot of silly,
there's not much you can do about things. You want to execute things that fall into that category, you can't. You're not going to put them on a multicore. You're not going to put them on a...
How many people tell you, you take this thing and just break it into the pieces? Make a data flow graph of your problem, and it looks like a chain. Okay, so here's the first piece, give it to one core, second piece, give it to another core, third piece, give it, and then run them all in parallel.
Yeah, it doesn't mean there aren't lots of useful things where you can use multicores, like in search and so forth. You can sort of suck in as many as you like.
But he raised a very
I'm
good
not
point
sure
for me.
how to do it. Sorry.
Go ahead, go ahead.
Short comment. Maybe an approach would be to bring some stuff of this that runtime systems do into hardware. So find ways to go from instruction level parallelism to thread level parallelism from a sequential program.
So I simply
For
agree,
example,
so
that
he buys into a lot of my stuff.
I'm
So
not
I would
sure
argue that the
guys-
runtime system should be should be thought of as part of that. Absolutely. It shouldn't be thought of part of the OS, it should be thought as part of the microarchitecture, that it's getting signals from the running hardware, and it's doing procedures based on those signals. These procedures have been invoked by the running program. So you write a program, gets compiled, the compiler puts into the executable image calls to the runtime system, which then will use the information being provided by what's really going on in the hardware to then allocate resources at the hardware level. And the runtime system would be tied to the hardware.
And by observing the state of the machine. So, of course, the math buys many of you things because he comes from the school of Panelists. And what about looking at it differently? What about looking at the runtime system like all the other nice features that we cannot implement in hardware, but we would like to use to let us manage and control all the hardware, and the multicore is a particular example of the resources that we have, depending on what is the...
You want to get back to this usability.
No, it's not a
thing,
very
right?
but look at like a part of the architecture. All of the functionality that we cannot implement in hardware is still too expensive to use.
So I want to get back to usability and another aspect which for me is important. If you look at the software guys, these guys have not been, still for the past 40 years. They have built huge abstractions. They are dealing with a million lines of code. They are building virtual machines on top of virtual machines. For example, Scala is a virtual machine on top of Java. So their abstraction level is going up and up and up. On the other hand, the computer industry is providing them with, it has been providing them with faster and faster machines, which suited them because you can keep your abstraction and forget about there's a hardware implementing it. Now, we came to, in my view, a disruptive point, because now you're telling software people, hey guys, here's the thing, I cannot provide you more speed, but I can provide you more cores. Now, good luck. And that's a bit challenging, because now you have to train students to solve things in parallel. We actually don't know how to do it, and sometimes you cannot even do it. So here's the challenge. Are we back to the times when we had to be very tall, and thin engineers. They have to understand about software and hardware to take benefit of the platform, or we will be able to keep, separate tracks.
So I think it's tall skinny, but that's,
You think it's tall skinny?
oh yeah,
Always been.
I always did, yeah.
No, I'm sorry to say, we're talking about software engineers yesterday during lunch.
And
And
I
these
think
guys
they,
are worried about making the average Joe programmer
Yes.
able to work on a million lines of code.
That's the issue.
That's the issue.
The
So
issue
cost
is
of
not,
software
so
development
this idea that you can teach people parallel programming is
Doesn't work.
true, but as you get it, it's only a very small.
Well, it's complicated.
I mean, right now, we can't even teach them reading, writing, and arithmetic in the United States. How the hell are we going to do parallel programming?
there's certainly that.
There's no evidence to
Yeah,
support
but
your
you
case.
see, that's why you need.
No, there is evidence. You get them started right, see?
Yeah, but you
The
teach.
problem, so where
you
do we
teach-
start? So in
You're
most
not going to come
schools,
out one student every 2 years.
you
need
teach
40
in
for a
front
semester.
well, so let's not start them off by teaching them Java,
Please.
Yeah, they're doing
I
that.
think that'd go a long way. They have no idea what's going on. They memorize a pattern. They hope that the exam question will fit the pattern they've memorized.
Yeah. So the funny thing is that they are getting paid to do exactly that.
And the teacher doesn't have a clue either. So the teacher, in fact, it used to be the teacher would have to copy the textbook onto the notes and then go in class and write the notes on the board. Now that's all the teacher has to do is hit the thing in the PowerPoint.
Yeah, come back to my question. The question is the following. Can we tell the software guys, okay guys, just sustain your abstractions. We are going to provide you with what you want. Or are you going to tell them, guys, here's a bill. You have to change the way you think and the way you work. Which one of the two is going to work?
So I think both. I think that if you have a serious problem, if you want to solve a serious problem, you're going to have to understand at a deeper level. And if you want to do a silly payroll program, then we will provide this software layer so that you can remain clueless and still get your silly payroll problem solved by that piece of that layer that he's talking about of in between. Go ahead, comment.
Should we
So-
be teaching?
No, he
I
wants
didn't get your point.
I'm sorry?
I submitted this, but I didn't get your point.
So we do, oh, you didn't get my point. Good, because so I've got two interfaces. So the simplest way to put it is two interfaces to the hardware. One interface for people who get it and can take advantage of it, and then one interface for people who are clueless. And then the thing that you raise is this software, this layer, to have us fix it so that the clueless can actually get their work done on the hardware.
So you're saying that there are intrinsically clueless
Right.
people who you can never.
So I agree with you on that one. There are intrinsically clueless people that you can not only not teach reading, writing, and arithmetic, you certainly can't teach.
But you should
Carro.
facilitate them somehow to, do something.
No, these people, they don't want it. I mean,
So what will you do? You will stop data structures in freshman year and you'll start Dijkstruct.
I'm sorry?
You'll start parallel algorithms in the first year. What are you going to do in order to teach them?
That's a good idea.
So I don't want to turn this into a lecture on how I think you should teach the freshman course.
No.
I will tell you that you are not aware of my freshman book apparently, or are you? Are you aware of it?
No.
So it's a bottom-up approach. I start with a P-type and a N-type transistor, and these are like wall switches, and you connect them, you got an inverter, then you connect a bunch of these, and you got an AND gate and an OR gate, connect a bunch of those, you got a mux and a decoder, connect a bunch of those, you got a gated latch, next thing you got a finite state machine, next thing you got a computer, next thing you program the computer in zeros and ones, its own machine language, next thing you do assembly language, next thing you do C. You just keep building on what you already know. One of the programs they write, their first semester freshman year, is so the statement of the problem is, you've got a directory of your building of names and office numbers. And so from the keyboard you type in a name, and what comes out on the screen is the office that he's in. To do that, you have to chase a linked list, and then you have to go down and make a string compare, and freshmen, some of whom have never seen a computer before, are able to successfully write that program, because we build their knowledge base from square one. I don't teach Java. When you asked about data structures, the point is...
You need to get to parallelism. How do you teach parallelism?
So, let me
That's my
suggest
question.
some people would object to that approach, which is not my
Many
case.
people object to that approach.
And
I've
so-
only got about 100 schools yet that are doing it my way, and 5,000 schools that are teaching Java. So
Right. So,
many people would object
so
to
do you
it.
think there's a role of functional programming language in the freshman class?
It depends what freshman, if it's a freshman class at
Science?
U of Texas, maybe because you've got a selected population. That's why they can do this kind of thing. Right? And these are kids that have done very well in school, right? But you're not going to go into some community college and teach people, we can teach them functional programming language. They'll look at you like, you know, why? How can I make a living with this? That's what they want to know, because they're paying for the education, right?
So I don't like that paying for the education thing.
That's what gives you that big salary, you know?
No, that's why we're teaching Java, you know, because you read the,
We just go.
they read the want ads and they see Java. So I should, it's a freshman course. The kid's not going to graduate for 4 years, right?
So,
You should teach them C#, because 4 years from now, that'll be the language.
but,
Except 4 years from now, when we do teach freshmen, we will teach them C#, because that'll be the language.
so,
But at that time, we should teach them D flat, because that'll be the language 4 years.
so, again, I want to repeat my question for the whole audience, not only for you guys. Are we in disruptive times, or it's just business as usual?
I'm sorry?
Are we in disruption?
Are we in disruptive times, or it's just business as usual? Because remember, computer industry has provided faster and faster machines. And now we're providing more and more cars. So, that,
Cores.
yeah, so it requires a radically new approach to programming if you want to take any use of those guys, extra core memory. And I don't think most people are prepared for that, or even that there are real life problems that adapt to that very easily.
So you buy into Stamatis' thing that what?
No.
You've got a multi-core chip,
I'm not saying you have to take
do
more of them.
something with it.
No, that's that. I'm saying that we don't even know how to do it. I mean, for me, these are disruptive times. In your view, we are just business as usual.
See, how disruptive it is. So, John, you have some on-hand experience, right? Because you guys have had heterogeneous stuff for many years. And you had a single source that will be compiled into executables. So how disruptive this was compared to any other programming business? Did you need to hire only PhD students from Yale and from Stanford?
Yes, and they had to have vertical knowledge.
They have to have
They
the
had to.
knowledge. Okay.
And I would trade one of those for 1,000 of the others.
Yes.
How we can make use of the $1,000
I don't know.
By
Maybe you can. I don't know. Or they can program databases like you're doing now.
or web page?
Or web pages, yeah, that's actually.
So, what John is saying is that it's time for the tall, thin guy to handle the things.
So I think
And
it's
that's not
always
the
been,
guy, that's not the
always
guy
been
most
true.
of us
I think
are.
that's always been true.
I think it's always been the case.
Some people get away.
So we do get away. I mean, we see those guys designing, terrible algorithms, and we didn't, because we are providing enough power for them. So you are saying that software engineer people just don't care about algorithms, which is pretty amazing, right? Now they have to care about it.
So shall I really be obnoxious? Too many software engineers are really clueless, and they sort of moved into software engineering because they failed the architecture course, and every other course.
See?
I mean,
It's not always possible.
I know it's being
bottom-up stuff. you know.
take any random faculty in the world and look at who the yo-yos are, you know. In Brazil, you have this problem. I get this all the time, you know, that the software engineering faculty are, every time they speak, you know, it's like oofta, you know.
Same problem.
Yeah.
But they're the majority of guys around.
So that's true. So is your question, should computer architecture be the full
Run
employment,
everything,
the full
yeah.
employment act?
No,
Is that what-
just saying that up to now, computers have been going to new domains because they provide resources that people can use to solve problems that they never dreamed of before.
That's true.
That's true. And that required a somewhat simple way of reasoning, the way we reason about algorithms.
So now-
if you want to use hardware that's
okay,
there,
I got
you
it,
need a
I got it,
completely
I got
different
it.
reasoning system.
So
which
the thing that both.
frankly, I'm not quite aware of.
Yeah, so I got it. So the thing that you and Stamatos are saying is that as time has gone by, there have been new things coming up all the time that have enabled faster and faster computers, and now that new thing is lots of cores on the chip. So how do we exploit that? Is that what you guys are saying?
Could be. But
Huh? Could be.
Could be,
Here we
but
go
not
with the maybe
necessarily.
again, you know?
Not necessarily. Not
You-
necessarily.
Okay, no, so go ahead.
Because even if you can use 100 cores, and that's not performance, that's not in a performance effective way, this will give you the strength to do new applications and use computers, and it will be enough for the interested to go on and utilize these chips and make new software about it and new applications and new cell phones and new whatever, and this will be enough. Even though they don't get so much performance, they will find applications that do not require performance, and they will be very useful to people.
Why then are they using
They can find.
many cores?
Sorry,
So what's the purpose of using many cores?
the purpose, because we have the technology to do, and this
Just use
So we
one
have
core,
one-
one at a-
this enables us to do more
So-
things.
Maybe
We can do more.
So
In some first
you're
way.
saying there is no other alternative?
Sorry.
You can use a single core, no?
Wait a
Use
minute.
a faster single core.
Wait
you
a
get the
minute.
same thing
Human
done.
brain does not think as fast as, in calculation terms, as a supercomputer.
Sorry?
So, as a supercomputer,
I didn't hear what you,
human brain
Human brain.
oh, the human brain. That's
cannot,
what now?
does not think in terms of calculations per second
Absolutely.
as fast as a supercomputer.
That's right.
But it can do things that the supercomputer will
Absolutely.
never do.
And vice
So
versa.
Why is
you
that?
can come closer to that.
And yeah, so,
Why do we want this?
I don't
This
know.
often comes up. Why do we want to replicate the human
I
brain?
know.
Exactly.
No, that's an example.
so it'd be good to.
don't go to
replicate
the
that.
ethical
No,
side
So
of it.
before we replicate the human brain, we first need to understand the human brain.
I don't care about
Do you
the
have
human
any
brain,
idea
that's
how
an
the human
example.
brain does what it does?
That's just an
Does
example.
it do much?
No, I hear
Make
this
a
all the
robot
time.
that flies like a fly.
Danny
I
Hill,
don't
no, Danny
Do
Hillis's thesis, you know the name Danny Hillis? The connection machine, MIT student of the guy who invented artificial intelligence, as opposed to all those people who take credit for inventing, Minsky, Marvin Minsky, yeah. Hillis was Minsky's student. He came up with the connection machine. He said, you know, you got computers, and they switch at 10 to the 9 events per second, and there are 10 to the 9 of them. 10 to the 9 times 10 to the 9 is 10 to the 18. And the human brain only has 10 to the 10 neurons, and they switch in the millisecond range. So 10 to the 10 times 10 to the 3 is 10 to the 13. So the human brain goes at 10 to the 13, the computer goes at 10 to the 18. How come the human brain can do so much more than the computer can
Can it? I mean, that's this anthropomorphic view of the world
do?
is
So we don't understand, first of all, how the human brain is doing what it's doing.
Just a
Number
minute.
one.
Do you-
Number two, the connectivity. So you know about fan in and fan out? Trust me, the fan in and the human brain is not 4, or the fan out, not 4.
So what?
Don't you think that human brain can characterize properties of algorithms, which computers cannot?
We don't build cars or conveyances with legs on them. We don't build airplanes that flap their wings. Why do we want to build computers that act like human brains? I mean,
So that's
I
very
didn't say
I
that.
think
good.
you said-
I
I
said
think
the
you
opposite,
said-
exactly.
yeah.
I
No,
said
that's
that
good.
computers
We
will
don't
never
make-
do as much as the human. I said the opposite completely.
Is the idea.
Will never do as much what the human brain can do. Will never replace ingenuity.
I wouldn't say that.
and
So, in our
inspiration.
field, so saying never is very dangerous.
Yes, it's very.
Maybe, yeah. I will not live for it.
Computers, I think, will end up outperforming human beings in your lifetime.
Sorry.
Most things that you consider human thought processes, they will outperform human beings in your lifetime.
So the chess playing,
Outperforming meaning faster.
Well, they'll be.
no, better. So the
It's
chess
some-
program beats the human chess grandmaster.
Right.
Just-
But they just
Well,
searches the whole
but-
space.
That's a
That's not.
finite space.
So I got an Ethernet.
That's garbage.
What about
That's the way
the
databases
Jeopardy
they.
machine? What?
I'm sorry?
That's not smart at all. What
What's
the
not
computer
smart?
program does,
What's not smart at all?
searching all the possibilities.
Right. It's
Yes.
a finite
Yes.
space. It's big, but it's fine.
I'm not tracking.
So the
It
argument
searches
is-
faster.
No, but
Okay,
the job of
so-
the machine-
With an Ethernet, you stop, you back off, and then you start. So, go ahead. The carrier is now no signal, so somebody talk? Either one of you, but I'm missing the point, and if I'm missing it, so other people.
Okay,
Go
so
ahead.
you claim that it can replace human thought, and
I'm saying, no, I'm not gonna do that
No,
at
I'm not
all.
saying it's gonna, all I said
Some
is,
of that.
as far as the input-output is concerned, I suspect that within your lifetime, you'll see machines that can do pretty much anything a human can do on that.
well, I disagree, because when you say.
We'll have to
this-
wait.
The same, yes, we have to wait, because I don't think that they can replace creative thought. I think that they can replace mechanical thought, such as playing chess. Oh, absolutely. If you have a large enough machine, you can anticipate all moves, and therefore you can always win. Or
But
at
we're
least
not doing it
tie.
that way. So the
But-
chess
but-
programs are not doing it that way, right?
Well, they're not doing that way because of limitations of the machine.
No. If you back up 30 years ago, it was laughable to even suggest that a machine could outperform a human in the game of chess. And in fact, the first chess programs, the way they play the game, and if they lose the game, then some human programmer would take that board situation and produce code, so the next time you saw that board situation, you'd win the game. And that developed as a kludge.
Yeah.
That's not what's going on now. The algorithms to play chess are much more sophisticated today. It's not chasing every possible leaf of the path we need.
But I think it's fair to say they're prime tree type algorithms, basically,
Sure.
Right.
with opening moves in a dictionary or something.
So-
And in fact, and there were 3 parts to the game, but it's, my simple point is, it's not just a big kludge anymore, that the problem has been looked at and better algorithms have been developed that now win.
Look, it's a finite space.
So I'm missing something, go ahead.
It's a finite space.
It-
Always.
Chess games.
So it's certainly a finite space, very large.
Very large,
finite
right?
space.
But
So-
you could put a number to it.
So that's your point.
It's a
is
googolplex
that-
of
So any
whatever.
problem, so that's his point. Any problem that has a finite space
The machine.
admits a machine when you've got enough cores and enough of everything, you should be able to solve it. But what about the problems that don't have a finite space, like creativity?
Creativity,
That's
so.
just-
What is
without it-
creativity?
without a
This is
defined-
one of these
yeah,
things, you're always getting back to, as a computer does more and more and more things, you sort of retire into a smaller and smaller corner, and now it's creativity. I don't even know what that
So,
is.
for
What is
instance, finding
I
what's the right input for a specific output. How can you do this in the computer?
Is it association?
It's not really association. I don't know.
No, it is.
I mean, there's plenty of algorithms that don't return the same result when run on the same data twice, that are not actually wrong.
So if you go backwards, in some of the creativity I could define as postulating outputs and finding the inputs that, or
You
set
know,
of inputs, right?
I don't know
So
if you remember
what's
back-
creativity, right?
Back in the early days of AI, they started to write programs to prove theorems in geometry. And so they actually came up with new proofs to old theorems, very old theorems, like, the base angles of an isosceles triangle are equal, or that they had completely different ways of looking at the solutions were different than the ones that you get in the tech.
And in fact, his example is beautiful because what the computer came up with for exactly that theorem, the proof is so much more beautiful and creative than what you
So
learned in high school.
if a human did it, you would say, wow, that's really creative. The computer does it.
So how would you do that, by the way? Prove that the angles, you've got an isosceles triangle, right? You know what an isosceles triangle is, right? How would you prove that the base angles are equal? How would you prove it? You did that when you were in high school, right?
I don't remember.
You really don't remember?
It was a long time ago.
The size.
Huh?
Depends. Maybe you prove that the size are equal.
I'm
No, you're given the sides.
You are given the
isosceles triangle, that means the sides are equal.
Right.
Here's what the triangle looks like, right?
And you want to try to do it graphically,
How do you
by laying down triangles in a sphere.
Now, you drop a.
So, that's right. The way we learned it was you drop a perpendicular, and now you've got two right triangles, and you match them, and you show that the two right triangles are congruent, and therefore the angles must be equal. That's the way we learned it in high school.
And I think that basically is the proof in Euclid, actually. So it
Then
hasn't
everybody,
changed.
the computer came up with a better one. Go ahead.
Well, no, I mean, it just
Computer
said,
didn't do that.
computer said, can say the triangle's ABC, now compare it to a triangle that's ACB. They're congruent, therefore their base angles are the same. You don't need to do a construction, it's a shorter proof. This is
Isn't that
2,500
beautiful?
years after the, original proof that we all love.
Are you tracking what he's saying?
I don't remember the proof as well. I don't remember it.
You're the victim of garbage.
No, so they
remember
no,
what's the difference between
so,
congruent and
Trevor
equal.
brings up a
Right.
beautiful
I don't
example.
remember many things.
No, Trevor brings, so please try to track. I've got an isosceles triangle. I want to prove that the isosceles, these two sides are equal. I want to prove these two angles are equal. The way we learned it in high school, apparently in Brazil, in America, I venture to, in fact, you say that's the way the Greek proved it originally.
Well, I think that's the way it's.
It's the obvious way to prove it, and what that is, the way we learned it was, you drop a perpendicular. Now, what you've got is two right triangles, and you show that those two right triangles are congruent. And since they're congruent, the base angles are equal. And that's the way, anybody in this room didn't learn it that way? I assume everybody in this room took plane geometry in high school, right?
Yeah, they had to take that out of the curriculum because they were going to
Right.
teach power of the program.
There you go. So what Trevor's pointing out is, when they gave it to the theorem prover to do, no construction necessary. Look at the isosceles triangle and say, I've got the triangle ABC. How about the triangle ACB? They're congruent, therefore B equals C. Isn't that beautiful? I would say that's incredibly creative.
And this is
creative.
circa 1960.
Yeah, well, 70 maybe, yeah.
All I'm saying is that you attribute creativity because it's very, what is it? I mean, we can't talk about it until we can agree on what it means, can we? And
I gave you an
they'll
example.
never be creative, I
I
don't
gave you
believe
an
that.
example, not about creativity.
I think they'll do things that we don't even
I told
understand.
you.
I mean, there's going to be a big problem with
I told you what computers cannot do. They cannot characterize properties of algorithms.
They cannot do what?
Characterize properties of algorithms.
So, well, give me an example of a property of an algorithm.
This algorithm will end.
Yes,
Nobody can.
but you can't do that either.
You can.
You can only do it in special cases.
That's not fair.
Non-decidable problem.
No, that's not correct, because I will look at the algorithm. I will not look at what the machine will do. I will not look at the program. The algorithm, I can prove it will always end.
If you have one,
Yeah. Okay, you say when synthesize algorithms, I cannot make.
Can you write down a method for doing it? I mean, you're basically the computer, right? So you can't do that.
Sorry.
You can certainly do it in individual cases.
yes.
That's
But then,
not-
then we should be okay, Trevor. So if what you say holds, we don't have to teach students parallel programming. The computers will become so much clever that they can program themselves.
I mean,
parallel.
to maybe put the conversation back on track a little bit about it being a discontinuity, it's certainly true that the technology we've been using to build computers seems to be going through a change, somewhat of a discontinuity. The silicon story is, so if we have different things to build computers out of, they may not have separate memories and processes. If you're going to want to build a quantum computer, I'm not sure whether that thing's going to happen, but just for the sake of argument, you may want to rethink the whole thing. So technology certainly influenced the way we put together, that we architect computers, right? And the technology that has been pervasive through most of your lives is silicon, SAMOS. And it's starting to look, it's starting to fray at the edges. And so technology stopped, right? Steam trains, you know, they got to a point where they couldn't make them whatever they
Faster.
better, yeah, faster,
You can get
more performant.
You can get more of it, and Stamatis' main concern is how to use this more of the same thing and turn it into what Yale likes, performance.
I mean,
Without making everybody mad, how to program these things.
there are a lot of examples of technologies.
Probably, okay, let me take another view. Probably if we understand how to program it easier, then probably we will find out how to make it faster, easier.
Well, if you've got all the
Because
product
if you-
in the middle.
So
between the-
if you try to think of things in the memory system, in which I have worked a bit in my PhD, it's easier to understand things when you talk about explicit communications rather than when you talk about cache coherence. So if you make it very complex, you don't understand it that good. Making reason about the same things through different interfaces, complex interfaces and simpler interfaces. Reasoning about things becomes easier with simpler interfaces. So maybe we need a better interface to our own construct in order to make it faster. So maybe if we know how to write a program that immediately gets parallelized by the hardware somehow, maybe then we can find out, for example, how we can make it variable size processor.
Okay.
Whatever. I
So
don't know.
you're
I'm saying we might be able eventually to make it even faster.
You're a computer architect. What are you going to do when people say, oh, we can't build anything beyond 7 nanometers, or it's just not worth it? So you're stuck with what you've got. This is what we can do. These are the number of things we can economically put on the chip. This is what memory's going to look like. Then what?
Then it will be just the applications that will drive the thing.
What, mate?
Yeah, if we go back to the earlier discussion.
About the brain.
No, about.
We'll
about
use
Multicore.
creativity to solve the problem.
About using Multicore. We can perhaps take an analogy with the Formula One. The Formula One drivers are the smartest drivers on the world. We don't ask them to be an engineer, to have the quantum theory or anything.
I agree with you. You're talking to the wrong guy. Talk to this person. He would have them learn how. He would have them learn how, you know, the engine works.
So if you provide a car,
You know, if you're on a deserted highway late at night and the thing goes out, knowing that you need spark, gas, and air becomes something that.
Yeah, you buy a new
Yeah,
car.
but this is a good abstraction. You cannot ask the people to go.
And as a matter of fact, sorry, it's a wrong example. I agree with you, but the example that you use is wrong. Michael Schumacher is a good engineer, and he give back to the engineers very useful feedback because he was the only guy in the car driving. He can hear the car, he can feel the car, he could give a lot of good feedback, and that's why he was so
I
successful.
live in Canada, so my example is just Gilles Villeneuve, who is not in.
I need to invoke an example. I have a very close friend who teaches computer architecture and operating systems. But her research is in what's arguably bioinformatics. She tries to match chromosomes of chimpanzees with humans, etc. Because she teaches computer architecture and operating systems and understands the critical issues of a GPU, she can map her problem onto a GPU and get enormously higher performance in solving her problem with a GPU than most people addressing that problem with a cluster of a huge number of CPUs can.
Yeah, I agree with you, but we shouldn't have an elitist point of view, because otherwise it will stay in a small part of the world.
Correct. You restrict yourself. That's correct. And indeed, it's the question, what is the right balance between these two sets of problems, as you mentioned earlier, how to educate the one group and the other group, and also let them work together to build, right, let's say, the most complex piece of machinery a human being ever built, no?
Okay, it's after 1:30. Somebody want to comment, or one of you guys want to have anything else further to say, or should we call it? I do want to point out a couple of things. One is this open mic format. You either like it or you don't like it, or you're neutral. If you like it or don't like it, please make that known on the sheet that you, on the evaluation sheet, so that we know what to do next year. Second of all, if you do want to do a panel on a targeted topic, you might also put that on the evaluation sheet, or let the organizing committee, or John, the general chairman this year, let somebody know that you have a topic for the panel you want to do next year, and we could do that instead of the open mic, for example. Or if you like this format, let us know that. This thing keeps changing, and I think that's healthy, and we'd like to make it responsive to what the community wants to have done. So, nobody has anything else? Let's give it to you guys to adjourn, I guess.
Okay.
There's a final wind-up little session that some of these guys, that, I don't know, John and Georgi, et cetera.
Yeah, I will do it this year. So, because Jarmo is not with us,
Okay.
so unfortunately Jarmo could
So
not make it.
the panel is done, right?
Panel is done. Thank you, Yale. Thank you, Trevor.